The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You've always got time for Short Time.
Hey, it's Mario Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine.
The one and only Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
And welcome back to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. Jason Bryant here with you. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for subscribing on your various podcatcher of choice. If this is your first time listening to the program, go to matttalkonline.com/listen. You can find out how you can listen to this show in all its glory. Yes, because this is a glorious program. Each and every time an episode is released. This episode is actually going to go back to the first weekend in June 2017 at Hall of Fame Honors Weekend in Stillwater. I'll talk to Tricia Saunders, High School Excellence Award winner, Cierra Foster of Post Falls, Idaho. Interesting backstory on the hurdles she's had to go through, and talks a little bit about Tricia Saunders and what her role meant in women's wrestling, and how Cierra Foster, coming through 20 years after Trish Saunders, really broke down a lot of barriers for women's wrestlers and in that early group of trailblazers. So we will talk to Miss Cierra Foster here on Short Time. Now here with 2017 Tricia Saunders High School Excellence Award winner, Cierra Foster of Idaho. Cierra, first of all, congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
What does it mean to win an award named after Tricia Saunders?
It's so amazing. I never expected that I'd be chosen. And so when I did, it's just so humbling, because
somebody your age, you're coming through with a lot of the work has been done to kind of clear the way for women's wrestling. There's still a lot more work to be done. But when you hear the name Tricia Saunders, what do you think of?
I think of someone who was not afraid to step out of and do what she wanted to do. I think that she is an amazing person, and that I would not be here today without her.
Like so many wrestlers, there's a familial experience with it. Your brother wrestled. He currently wrestles at the University of Wyoming. How soon after he started wrestling did you follow him to the wrestling mats?
2 years.
So it was right away.
Yes. He started wrestling when he was 6, and I started wrestling when I was 6.
And what was the response from your parents when you went to them saying, I want to wrestle too?
My mom said no. She said, no way my daughter is going to wrestle. And my dad's like, well, let's just let her practice. Let's see how she does at practice. And then it went to, well, let's just see how she does at a tournament. And then I ended up winning my first tournament I ever wrestled. So
really?
Yes. Because
I was in my first tournament I ever wrestled, I was second out of 2 people. So, okay, you've already crushed me on credentials. Now, when we look at developing women's wrestling and where you're coming from, not a whole lot of women's wrestlers in Idaho. Washington has girls wrestling state tournaments and such. But when you're growing up, what were the opportunities like to wrestle other girls, or were you mostly wrestling with boys all the time?
I wrestled mostly guys all the time, 24/7. Every once in a while, because we did an Idaho league and a Washington league, I got to wrestle one girl or two, but mostly guys for sure.
So in your age demographic coming through, women's wrestling's been in the Olympics since 2004. So your history of women's wrestling, it's kind of been there. But what have you learned about women's wrestling as a whole historically since you've gotten older and you're winning awards and credentials and tournaments and such? What do you know about it, and what would you like to continue doing for the sport of women's wrestling?
I know that it's definitely coming out of the woodworks, and that's really exciting. I know it's getting bigger and people are starting to recognize it more, which is great. In Idaho, it was kind of sheltered. I was the only one. I didn't know very much about girls wrestling until I actually stepped out of the guys and started wrestling more girls my sophomore year.
What was it like the first time you wrestled a girl after wrestling guys for all those years?
It was different. When I was riding them, they would do strange things that guys would just never be able to do because they're not as flexible. So I was like, what is going on? But I figured it out, and I ended up really enjoying it.
Did you discover something about your own wrestling style by wrestling other girls that you may not have known about?
Yes. I definitely wrestle more on the more aggressive side. I like to go after and find my shot, where girls are kind of, I'm going to move you around and see what opens, where I'm more of the aggressive like the guys. So that was interesting. I can ride the guys with leg rides, but I cannot ride the girls because they're just so flexible in their hips. So that was interesting also.
Who was your first wrestling hero, whether it be a man or woman?
My first wrestling hero had to be my brother.
And that almost seems obvious, but why?
He was really all right with me wrestling. He always been 100% behind me, and he's always backed me up. And he's definitely one of my hardest critics, but he does it because he wants to see me get better.
Do you see a difference in y'all's relationship as brother-sister than you see maybe other classmates and such, that they may have been athletes, but they weren't in a sport like wrestling?
We're definitely really close. You can always see us fighting because we're wrestling all the time, but we're really, really close. And other people, especially at my school, they're just not as close with their siblings.
Your mom was explaining to me exactly how your last 2 years went. You placed in high school state tournament, third as a freshman. Then you went up a weight class, didn't place. And then ultimately the decision was to stop wrestling the high school season with the boys and go over to Washington and wrestle in their girls circuit. Explain the rationale behind that and how beneficial that was.
Well, guys got so much stronger.
And you were growing into bigger weight classes too.
Yes, I was. My sophomore year, I cut way too hard to 113, and I couldn't wrestle at that point. But then the next year I decided, I'm just going to go up weight because I need to let my body grow. I need to get bigger. And I started wrestling the guys, and I just couldn't compete anymore. And so I had to decide, wrestle with the guys or go and wrestle girls. And so I made the decision that I was going to go and pursue the girls wrestling, and I'm really glad I did because I met so many amazing people, and I just don't know where I'd be if I hadn't made that decision.
Washington, which is the border state, and geographically, how close are you to? Let's give people a view of where you're at in Idaho, so they know geographically.
All right, so I live in Post Falls, Idaho, and we are about 10 minutes away from the border, the Washington-Idaho border, and about 30 minutes away from Spokane.
Okay, and how far south from the Canadian border?
2 hours.
Okay, so it's up there. It's not a long trip to Canada.
Mm-mm.
So when you see what Washington has with the girls version of the girls mat classic, along with all the other boys divisions, how does that make you feel that there's a future for Idaho, that we can do this in Idaho just like Washington has started it?
It makes me feel good. It makes me think that being a girl wrestler in Idaho is not going to be weird. We're not going to get the bullying that I had to go through. And it makes me just be excited for what is in the future, because I had to go through a lot of adversity and to continue wrestling. And a lot of people think that, I would like to wrestle, but I can't because there's only guys here. So I'm very excited that they're going to have the opportunity that I didn't.
When you look at the growth of wrestling, the women's tournament in Fargo at the junior freestyle level, it was over 400 last year. It was the highest it's ever been. What do you think the key reason is more girls nationwide are wrestling, not just on their boys' high school teams or having girls' teams like in states like Texas or Michigan or Washington or Hawaii? Why do you think more girls are coming out for the sport of wrestling and wrestling freestyle in the summertime? Because
it's not looked down upon anymore. It's coming up, and people are seeing, it's part of wrestling, but it's not strange. It's everyone's kind of being, okay, girls wrestling is now a thing. We can't look down upon it. We're going to embrace it. And so now that more people are embracing it, these girls have a chance to get into wrestling and to really enjoy it.
You said your first wrestling hero was your brother. When it comes to women's wrestling, who was your first women's wrestling hero?
Clarissa Chun.
Why?
She's just always been so amazing. I met her when I was 11 at a camp in Idaho, which you definitely just would not have expected her to be there. And she was just really good with technique, and she really took an interest in me. And she just kept in touch, and since then, we're really good friends now.
And you've been as tall as she has since you met her, right?
No, I was smaller than her when I met her. It took me about a couple years. I had a growth spurt my 8th grade year, and when I came back, I was about 3 inches taller than her. But
you ever get any live goes with her?
I didn't. I wish I did. But like we always like almost got there, and then time ran out.
What's it mean for her? Obviously, you're going to go to Oklahoma City in the fall, but with Carissa now on the national team staff, how does that make you feel as you go through? You're still at the junior age group, and then there's the junior and the seniors, and then you have the opportunity maybe to be coached by Clarissa when you hit these world teams and Pan Am teams and stuff like that. So Clarissa on the staff, what's that mean for you as somebody who's looked up to her?
It means a lot. I mean, I really, really enjoy the whole USA staff in general, and they've really pushed me to the next level. It's just a really, really awesome thing that the person I looked up to is end up being put onto the staff.
This past summer in Rio, Helen Maroulis won a gold medal for the United States in women's freestyle wrestling. What were you doing when that happened?
Oh, I was watching it. I was like, put your stuff down. We're watching this, because I was like, she's going to do it. She's going to do it.
You thought she was going to do it right off the bat?
Yes. And so I was pretty much sitting in my house all day watching wrestling. So, that's all right. And then when she won, I was like, yes, she did it. And I was jumping up and down. It was.
Did you realize, or do you realize, what that means for women's wrestling? What do you think that means for women's wrestling?
It means that USA we're getting better and better. We're trying to get up to where Japan is. And it means that females, women's wrestling, she just opened the gate for everyone else. That she started it, and now everyone can follow in her footsteps.
From a women's wrestler's perspective, how satisfying was it for you to watch her win gold and for her to do it by defeating Saori Yoshida?
Oh, it was so amazing. Oh, man.
You're
I don't
quivering about this, right?
Yeah.
You're totally, wow.
It's, I'm speechless, really. It's such an amazing, amazing thing. And a lot of people don't realize what a big deal it was. And it's amazing.
As far as your goals now, seeing Helen do that proves that it can be done. How much more realistic do you believe that your goals and dreams of being a world and Olympic champion can be done now, because it's already been done?
I thought maybe, you always have that like little hope, but now that she's done it, it's like, this is possible. This is doable. I can do this. And so as you go through your wrestling career, you can set those higher goals because someone's already done them. And so you're like, yes, we can do this, guys.
Part of this weekend, as far as Honors Weekend, has been the Wrestle Like a Girl has come through, and it's starting to build. What does that organization mean for you?
It's a really big deal, especially since I'm from Idaho and we do not have girls sanctioned high school wrestling, or, any girls really. So it's a really, really big deal, and I just hope that it really works out. And for all those states that don't have women's wrestling, I hope they realize it's coming. So just hop on the train now.
Now we're moving to your college aspirations. The WCWA has been around for, looks like 13 years now, I think, if my math is right. You're going to Oklahoma City University, one of the power programs. Oklahoma City University, Simon Fraser, King are the three big ones. McHenry making a rush. Why choose Oklahoma City?
I really felt that I just fit in. I love being part of the team, and I like that we go and get after it every practice, and I really enjoy the school. They just got a new chemistry program and new building, and it's beautiful.
So you go with chemistry. What are your career goals when the world of wrestling no longer suits you?
I'm thinking about being a forensic pathologist.
Okay, so you watch a lot of Criminal Minds?
Yes.
SVU, that stuff?
Yes.
Favorite episode? Which one is it?
Oh, I don't have a favorite.
Because I watch a lot of SVU and I watch Criminal Minds.
You can't choose because there's so many good ones. It's just like impossible.
So what about college wrestling now as providing women an opportunity? Because you've got the Nationals have grown from a one-day event to now a two-day multi-mat event. Looking at how the college women's wrestling world is developing, where do you see the future of college women's wrestling?
D1 programs, for sure. Right now, we have some D2 programs, not a lot. But I foresee D1 picking it up and keeping it going from there as it's growing.
All right, going to shift gears on you a little bit, go a little current events. Being from Idaho, it's got to be disappointing about the drop of Boise State's wrestling program. From an outsider, what did the Boise State wrestling team mean for the state of Idaho, and how disheartened have you seen the wrestling community up there?
It meant a lot of a really big deal. So all of our Idaho boys that were like really looking for a place where they'd fit thought their aspirations were to go there, and just the way that Boise State handled the whole dropping of the wrestling program and how they told the wrestlers, they were literally after practice and they went in and was like, here's your if you want to transfer schools because we don't have a wrestling program anymore. That's the way they decided to tell the wrestlers. And it just doesn't make sense because they just hired on a new coach and their grades were the best that had been in a while. And they had a really good recruiting class. One of the friends I actually know from who wrestled at Lakeland, it's like 15 minutes away from Post Falls. He was actually signing his intent to go there, and he was picking out his classes. And the administrator came in, told him that there was no wrestling program anymore, put him on a plane, and sent him home.
Jeez. So now there's no Division I opportunities. There's no 4-year opportunities. The only program left in the state's at North Idaho in Coeur d'Alene. Where do you think the wrestling community in Idaho needs to rally? If Boise State says, all right, we're not going to do this anymore, do you think there's enough support in the state of Idaho to say, all right, Idaho or Idaho State, it's your turn?
I do think now that with the amount of people that have been signing petitions and we're just constantly trying to get it back. But if they do say that they're not, I think U of I is probably the next step because they're the closest. And I really think that we have enough people. We just need the money, the boosters. But now that with Boise not having it, I foresee a lot of people are going to step up.
Switching back to wrapping this up about the future of girls and women's wrestling, Sally Roberts, 20 years ago, as a 17-year-old, was discovering wrestling. Now, you're what, 18? 17. So 20 years from now, you'll be her age. As hard as that may, she's going to kill me for saying this, but when you're that age and you're going to look back on talking to the girls that are winning this award, like you are here this year, what do you hope to tell them?
I hope to tell them that wrestling is going to be so much bigger. I hope to tell them that it was really worth every bit of it. And I hope to tell them that I'm glad they didn't have to go through the adversity that I had to go through to get to the position where I'm at now, that they'll be at this time.
Also be glad to tell them that you were probably a world Olympic champ too, right?
Yeah. We'll see.
Goals, aspirations.
Goals.
And maybe we'll see you on Criminal Minds. Cierra Foster, congratulations.
All right, thank you.
You are listening to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast with my daddy, Jason Bryant.
Thank you very much, Lucy, and I'd like to thank Cierra Foster for her time at the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Honors Weekend to talk about her receiving the Tricia Saunders High School Excellence Award out of the great state of Idaho. That's all I really got for you today. Still kind of coming off that World Team Trials hangover, although, as you heard just now with my daughter providing
the soundtrack for the bumper music there. This is my first Father's Day with both of my children. My youngest daughter, Ruby, will turn 1 in July. So as Father's Day came and went last year, I had a very pregnant wife. So this is the first time I've had the opportunity to be a father to 2 little girls on Father's Day. And what was cool is as we came back from church on Sunday, there was a little activity that they did and handed to me. It's called My Daddy. And it was a sheet where they had fill in the blanks. It's like, my daddy's name is this. And so it filled it all out. And it was like, my daddy's name is Jason. Yep, she had that right. He's 37. She knew my age. My daddy likes, she goes, my daddy likes to, and goes, watch wrestling in Nebraska, because I'm just coming off the World Teen Trials. She also got my eye color right. And then she goes, my favorite food is salad. And I'm like, that is totally not really the case. Although I do eat a lot of salads. And I like a big, hearty, like Cobb salad. Like, give me a giant Cobb salad with bacon and hard-boiled eggs and avocado. Yeah, I like a good Cobb salad, but my favorite food is definitely not salad. My favorite food's probably a nice grilled ribeye steak on the grill. It's just, anyway. So as I'm going through it, I was like, man, my daughter pretty much has this thing nailed. And she turns 5 on the 21st of June. So I've got a pretty smart 5-year-old who understands that, her dad covers wrestling. So that's pretty cool. And special thank you to all the fathers out there. And those, in some cases, there are moms that serve as both mother and father. So a lot of props. My dad, Grover. Yes, my dad's name is Grover. Grover Clinton Bryant Jr. Okay. I do not believe, and I actually have to thank probably my mom for this more than my dad. I do not believe I would be having the career I am if my name was Grover Bryant III. That's just, I sound like a super Muppet, okay? Or Super Grover. I don't know. It's just something about a name. I probably wouldn't have met my wife because, as I joked on some other shows, that, it's common knowledge, or not really common knowledge, but it's not a hidden fact that I met my wife through eHarmony. So, you get the name Jason in St. Paul or Jason in New Brighton, whatever. I don't think Grover in St. Paul would have elicited the type of click responses that I've gotten, and I don't think. Would my wife click Grover, sports writer, St. Paul? I don't know if that would have worked. So thank you to my parents for having the common sense and the good sense not to name me after my dad, because I just don't know where I'd be if my name was Grover. If my dad, I talked to him. He's coming off broken foot. He actually fell off a pier helping a boat come in down in Yorktown, Virginia, and my dad's like 72 and he hasn't aged in like 20 years. Fell off of it. He's telling the story and he stood up and he was walking back. He says, well, okay, arm's not broken. All right, foot's not broken. Look back. Well, wait a minute. Well, that doesn't look right. And his foot was like all sideways. The guy, he fell on a boat trailer like 6 feet off of, it was pretty crazy. My dad's pretty cool. Want to say happy Father's Day in a belated fashion to those out there and posting all the pictures on social media. I know I enjoy it. Again, if you're friends with me on Facebook, I apologize. You're not getting a whole lot of wrestling commentary from me. You get links to my podcast and pictures of my kids. Those are the things that are probably what my Facebook account is for. Last thing I want to point out, Brian Solo, the newest team member, thank you for your patronage. You can be like Brian and get a cool swag bag that's going to be coming your way. I've got 22 of these packages to send. And I live in where I live in New Brighton, Minnesota. Those of you who follow me on Twitter know that it's going to be 67 and sunny today. But we have the most grumpy mail worker at our local post office, and I fear, not for my own safety or for, I think his name is Clyde or Cliff or something. Everybody on like the local Facebook Messenger group calls him like the grump. Well, he's just generally not nice all the time. So the last thing I want to do is, the line is already going to be long, because this guy is like moves at one speed, and it's tortoises go, man, you slow. It's just, I don't want to go in with 18 packages, all having to go different ways to slow up this line, because that's just going to make everybody much more mad at me than this guy. So I'm going to find ways to get these things out. In case you're wondering, yes, Compound is going to be working on the hat. So if you're at that hat level and you can join, again, I have told you about all this stuff about joining Patreon, but not how you can join the team. Go to matttalkonline.com/join the team. You get listed on the contributions page. You get a hearty thanks here on the podcast. And certain levels, you'll get a shirt, a draft glass, hats, opportunity to be on the show. Or like Matt Waters up in Iowa, he has pitched an idea for a show series based on that, and I thought it was a good idea. So we will have some History of Women's Wrestling series shows coming up
here in the future. Kind of ties in with what we're talking here. You will hear again from Sierra Foster from that as we develop that. So a lot of things to do. But again, thanks to Brian. Thanks to all the team members that have supported this program and the network as a whole. MattTalkOnline.com/join the team. We'll be having one, maybe two more Division I schools join the fray this year on the Matt Talk Podcast Network, both with good wrestling history. And I think you're really going to enjoy those programs. So if you like that and you like exclusive, on-demand wrestling content you can consume anywhere, I encourage you to contribute to this network and this family of shows at MattTalkOnline.com/join the team. That's all I've got for today. I've told you about, let's see, my kid, Father's Day. My nose is burning from swim lessons every morning. I'm not swimming. My daughter is, Lucy. And let's see. No, go to Germany at the end of the week. So more international stuff coming on Short Time next week. We will also talk to Rob Prebish from the Maccabee Games, among other things. Upcoming shows. Stay tuned to MattTalkOnline.com and your podcatcher of choice. Thank you for listening and spending your time with me because, as you know, you've always got time for Short Time.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.